Welcome to Uncommon Knowledge. I'm Peter Robinson. By the way, please be sure to follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/UNC Knowledge. The best-selling author of America Alone, The End of the World as We Know It, Mark Steyn publishes regularly in National Review, The Washington Times, Investor's Business Daily, and in venues in Australia, Canada, and the United Kingdom, a one-man Commonwealth Association, and he is a frequent guest host for Rush Limbaugh. Mark, The End of the World as We Know It. First question, you mean that as a provocative overreach to get everyone's attention?
No, I think we are at the end. Like all Cassandras, you write a book warning about the apocalypse in hopes that you can ward it off. But I think whether we do ward it off or not, we are at the end of the post-World War II global order, and a lot of things have to be rethought as a consequence of that.
Segment 1, the numbers. Let's just lay out the demographic argument. I'll quote from America Alone. This book is about the larger forces at play in the developed world that have left Europe too enfeebled to resist its remorseless transformation into Eurabia, and that call into question the future of much of the rest of the world, including the United States, Canada, and beyond. The key factors are 1, demographic decline, 2, the unsustainability of advanced Western social democratic states, and 3, civilizational exhaustion. So we'll take each of those in turn. Demographic decline, the argument.
Well, Europe has simply given up, for the most part, having children. If you take the Mediterranean countries, for example, we tend to think of them in our stereotypical way as big, fecund cultures, big Italian mamas, big Greek mamas, my big fat Greek wedding,
right.
Big fat Greek loving family. In fact, they have collapsed birth rates. Germany, Japan, and Italy are already in net population decline. They have upside-down family trees. They have 4 grandparents with 2 children and 1 grandchild. That doesn't have to go on for a long time until you're in serious trouble and you reach a point beyond which you can't recover. And that's what a lot of European countries are at now. Now, some of them are just going out of business. If you look at Eastern Europe, some of the countries that were, until 20 years ago, part of the Soviet bloc, they gave up having children, and they're in population decline, and there's no successor population. What happened in Western Europe is slightly different. In effect, Western Europe imported a large Muslim population to be the children it couldn't be bothered having themselves.
And the Muslim birth rate is?
Well, the Muslim birth rate is said to be, because, you know, in a politically correct culture, they don't keep a lot of official figures on this. But compared to the average ethnic European birth rate, where they have 1.3 children per couple, the estimated Muslim population is 3.5. Now, the official British statistic from the official British Government Statistics Office says that the Muslim population of the United Kingdom is growing 10 times faster than the general population. That doesn't have to go on long for the numbers to even out. If you say people think it takes a long time, but if you say have a 90% population, let's not make it any kind of racial thing. Let's call them the Munchkins, say. Right. 90% Munchkins, and they have 1.3 children per couple, and then you have a 10% ethnic minority. You can call them the Ruritanians, call them whatever you want, but they have 3.5 children. That 90% and that 10% will have roughly the same number of grandchildren. So in other words, in two generations is all you need, and you've caught up. Yeah.
Right. Now, you write in America Alone, I'm quoting you, today's high Muslim birth rates will fall, and probably fall dramatically, as the Catholic birth rates in Italy and Quebec have. Question, what is your underlying theory of what drives birth rates? Why would the Muslim birth rate fall?
Well, I think there's two kinds of things that drive birth rates. Right. One is it's basic kind of economic improvement. People move from a primitive agricultural society where you don't need large numbers of children to work the farm into more developed societies where you need fewer numbers of children. What's happened in Europe has gone beyond that, though. Mm-hmm. In effect, the social democratic state has said you don't need to worry about children or grandchildren or anything like that anymore. You're taken care of from cradle to grave. There's a relatively high price in taxation to be paid for that, and that's why having a child is expensive in the modern world today. So people have fewer children because it's an economic liability. So if you don't have to have them, why have them? 40% of German female university graduates are childless. We talk about the maternal instinct, but evidently it isn't that instinctive. Not if you're German,
French or German or Spanish. So, give me. By the way, this business about the Muslim birth rate falling, I have the feeling in reading America Alone that you almost toss that to the opposition, because even that need not necessarily be the case. As witness say in the Church of Latter-day Saints in Utah, Salt Lake City is a completely modern town,
right?
But it has the highest birth rate in the United States.
Yes,
that is to say, it's not necessary.
No, and that's why the Mormons have spilled the banks of Utah, and why Mitt Romney can be running as a Mormon candidate for president from Massachusetts. They've outgrown the state in a basic sense. And I think you can see similar things in Britain. For example, Pakistani immigration went down for the first Pakistani birth rates went down for the first generation of Pakistani immigrants in the 1970s. Something very odd happened then in the 1980s and 90s, that it started creeping back up again. In other words, as soon as there was a big enough Pakistani population in northern England to be able to live in a kind of Pakistani culture, they resumed Pakistani-style fertility rates. So I accept, and I concede that point immediately, that the more that certain Muslim birth rates are falling. But which ones are they? They're generally speaking the more moderate ones. The Tunisian fertility rate is a Western fertility rate. In Turkey, why is Kemal Ataturk's Turkey turning into just another Islamist society? Because the Kemalist, Westernized Turks have a Western birth rate, and that great vast Turkish rural hinterland in the east retained a traditional Muslim birth rate, spilled its banks, like the population in Utah, and moved into the cities. And that's why whatever happens to Turkey, Kemalist Turkey is dead, gone, over. And if the Pentagon and the State Department don't get that, they shouldn't be in those buildings.